G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Wineback Wednesday. And as we approach the middle of November, obviously Christmas isn't far away. We had the very unique Christmas pageant here in Adelaide on the weekend, which is I think there's 75 floats, and it has been going for decades and decades, and it is a very unique parade, Christmas parade in the world. So yes, I've got my green shirt on today, and obviously we're tasting the Houdini 2025 Sangiovese Rosé, and obviously the colours. I thought, well, why not? Let's talk about Christmas and talk about some rosé, because it was quite fitting. We've been making rosé for a number of years, and it started out at least a decade ago making it out of Mourvedre or Mataro, out of the Barossa Valley. The wines have always been dry, and then we made that for a few years. Then we moved to a McLaren Vale Grenache for a couple of years, and then most recently, in the last few years, we've been using Sangiovese. First of all, we were using it out of a vineyard out of the northern Adelaide Hills, and then most recently this year, we've taken a block out of McLaren Vale. The reason why we moved to Sangiovese was just the reliability of higher acid content at the time of picking. The Mourvedre was pretty good most of the time, but obviously being in the Barossa, if you had really hot weather, even though we picked it early, often the acid profile wasn't really there, especially in the finished wine. So we slowly changed around, moved to Grenache, which was a bit out of Blewett Springs and a bit out of just near Tatachilla, near the old winery. And now we've moved to Sangiovese because obviously, like pretty well all Italian varietals, they really hold their natural acidity well, and they ripen through all sorts of conditions and really retain that acidity. So we picked this, and told me it was just at the point of just before fermentation. We picked it, pressed it, and as juice, it had 11.6 baumé. So baumé is a measure of sugar, and roughly, it's not a linear relationship, but it's roughly 1 baumé equates to 1% alcohol. And depending on what yeast is used during fermentation, etc., you invariably get a little bit higher than what your baumé is, but we ended up with about 12.5% alcohol. We did use a commercial yeast for this wine this year. Typically, just with a new block, I didn't really want to run the risk of what we were going to get, so we did use commercial yeast. Things like our Fiona, we use natural indigenous yeasts. So there are some wines that we definitely do use indigenous yeast for, and then some that we use commercial strains. This vineyard is 100% certified organic and biodynamic, but because we've added a little bit of sulphur prior to bottling, we can only call it made from organic fruit. So it's not classified as organic or biodynamic per se. Made in stainless steel, and fermented to dryness. So it's pretty well about 0.2 grams per litre of residual sugar, so negligible, and had a pH of about 3, just over 3 before bottling, and a TA of just over 8 grams per litre. So really quite austere and really vibrant and fresh and tasty. So without further ado, let's give it a go. The Houdini, which is the introduction to the portfolio, the Smidge portfolio, and named after a very elusive eldest daughter who's now 20 years old, but was walking and running at a very young age and hasn't been able to sit still ever since. But as well, it's really perfumed. It's sort of got some light strawberries, sort of musky notes. It sat on yeast lees post fermentation for about 4 months, much like the Fiano and the Sauvignon Blanc, and just adds sort of a creamy lift. There's sort of strawberries and cream and lift, very inviting. But at the same time, it's got a touch of sort of a savoury, sort of musky sort of note. So it's not all pretty and it's all very pretty and attractive, but it's not all primary fruit and everything. There's a few other complexing notes in the background. And then straight on the palate, lovely creamy acidity. Again, with that higher acidity we had, just leaving on yeast leaves just adds a little bit of texture, just fills in the potholes, what I call it in. Some lovely very light strawberries, sort of a bit of grapefruit sort of note, lovely acidity which matches sort of that grapefruit flavour profile. That creaminess sits in behind, lovely fresh and long, easy drinking, no oak influence. In the early days I did ferment the Grenache and the Mataro in older oak, French oak, but it sort of gave us that roundness which we're seeing with the yeast, but it sort of it was a bit more firmer and richer and a bit of a denser, more complex palate. But I prefer this sort of lighter, sort of fresher style that would obviously with warm summer's days, a nice charcuterie plate or something like that, just having a drink with friends. This is sort of the style that which most people enjoy. So as I said, we don't make a huge amount. It's sort of a nice, even a fresh orange peel there. But there we go. The 2025 Houdini Sangiovese Rosé from McLaren Vale. Thanks for listening, and here's to Christmas, because it's not far away, probably 5 weeks away. I hope I'm not causing you any alarm with realising how close it is. So thanks for listening. We'll speak to you soon.